Welcome pilots, my name is Hybrid V and today I'm going to show you the basics of space and atmospheric flight in Star Citizen. Alright, before we can ever take our first flight into the inky black of space, we first need to learn about how our ships get us around. Star Citizen uses a Newtonian model for spaceflight. What this means is that ships behave like they would in a real zero-gravity vacuum, meaning that if an object is moving, it will continue to move in its current direction indefinitely until an opposing force is acting upon it, stopping its momentum. But to get that object to move in the first place, we need an impulse to get it going, and this is where thrusters and engines come in. To move ships through space, each craft is dotted with various thrusters and engines to help us zip around the verse. These propulsion systems come in three categories. The first is main engines, which are the most powerful and usually are fixed to the back of the ship, providing thrust from the rear. Some main engines on certain ships can articulate into vertical configurations to facilitate better hovering or takeoff and landing control if needed. The second type is maneuvering thrusters, which are the smallest aboard the ship. Their job primarily is to help the ship pitch, yaw, roll, and even strafe vertically or horizontally or anywhere in between. They tend to be much weaker than other thruster types, but they are some of the more critical propulsion systems on a ship as they can help us do complex maneuvers and help keep the ship stable, even during atmospheric flight. And finally, we have retrograde thrusters, which are positioned at the front of the ship and are the second most powerful thrusters aboard the craft. Their job generally is to slow down forward-facing momentum of the ship, and if necessary, provide the thrust needed to fly in reverse. Every ship is built with this model in mind: main engines, maneuvering thrusters, and retrograde thrusters. Yes, even the alien ships in the game follow this same model. Governing all the chaos of our thrusters is the IFCS, or Intelligent Flight Control System, which translates stick input to thruster output. This is why when flying normally around in-game, the movement will feel natural thanks to IFCS activating the correct thrusters and modulating their thrust output in order to accomplish whatever maneuvers you are asking for of the craft. Thrusters are modeled in full detail in-game. This means that they can be damaged, overheat, wear out over time, and even knock your buddies off their feet if they're standing too close to them. Understanding how thrusters and engines work is key to becoming an ace pilot in the verse. Under normal operation, IFCS's default configuration is called coupled mode. Coupled mode attempts to make flying the ship feel more natural and closer to the flight profile of a plane back on Earth. In this mode, the ship's IFCS will apply thrust when the player asks for it, and when the throttle or other movement keys are released, the ship will automatically attempt to arrest any momentum by engaging the thrusters best suited for slowing the ship to a stop. An optional mode of flight is decoupled mode. Decoupled will stop IFCS from trying to arrest the momentum of the ship. This means that if you apply thrust in any direction, you'll just continue to move in that direction indefinitely, assuming you're in space, of course. This is useful for pilots that want more control over their ship, but it can be a bit much for less seasoned pilots. Give it a shot yourself and see how you like it. You can swap between coupled and decoupled mode with Alt plus C key at any time during your flight. Okay, so we know how thrusters and IFCS work together to move our ship around. Now let's actually talk about the controls and HUD. Movement controls are like that of a first-person shooter, with the W, A, S, and D keys controlling movement, mouse controlling pitch and yaw, Q and E to control roll, and spacebar and control for ascending and descending the craft, respectively. By default, the ship uses a virtual joystick mode, which turns mouse input into simulated joystick output. This helps with flying, as the player only needs to hold the mouse in a certain direction to yaw or pitch the ship rather than having to drag their mouse over their mousepad all the time. If you want true one-to-one mouse controls, you can disable the VJoy mode by binding the cycle mouse mode keybind in the options. This custom keybind will allow you to switch between the two modes at will. On the bottom left side of the HUD, we have the miscellaneous subsystem status indicators. From left to right, we have the VTOL indicator, or vertical takeoff and landing. Some ships have engines that can articulate to facilitate better control of their ship on planets, particularly when landing. This indicator will let you know whether the ship is in VTOL mode or not. Next is the coupled indicator. When lit up, this means IFCS is currently in coupled mode. When dim, this means the ship is currently in decoupled mode. ESP stands for Enhanced Stick Precision and is for combat purposes. We'll revisit this later in my basic combat guide. To the right of ESP is the gear indicator, which shows the status of the gear currently. When it's dim, the gear is up, and when it's lit, the gear is down. Above the subsystem status indicators is the thrust output indicator. This indicator shows your general thruster output. You can manually adjust the output of thrusters by adjusting the thruster output limiter with the right Alt and mouse wheel. Reducing output will reduce the power of thrusters, making the ship feel more slower and more sluggish. This is more for advanced pilots looking to tweak outputs either during an emergency or for extremely specific maneuvers. Therefore, I would not recommend altering thruster outputs if you are indeed a rookie pilot. When holding the shift key, the ship will activate boost. This will overclock thrusters that are currently firing to give them a big jolt in power. This boost is limited by how much boost capacitor is available, which is shown on the left side of the thruster output. When boost is no longer in use, a short cooldown will tick down. Once the cooldown is over, the boost capacitors will start to regenerate. Think of it as like a sprint bar in other games. If boost capacity drops below 25%, it will be unavailable until it is regenerated above 25%. The boost capacitor will also hide itself automatically whenever it's not in use and is at full charge. To the right of the thruster output is the speed tape. The speed tape measures your current velocity in meters per second. Just to the right of the speed tape is the speed bar, and the caret pointing to the speed bar is your current speed. The speed bar is a simple visual representation of your current speed from minimum to maximum. The white bar on the speed bar is the recommended SCM speeds. SCM stands for Space Combat Maneuvers. When doing complex maneuvers or engaged in a dogfight, it is recommended to keep your speeds at or below SCM to maintain maximum maneuverability. The red line above SCM is your cruise speed. You normally only go above SCM speeds if you need to travel some distance or you're trying to escape rapidly, as cruise speeds are not ideal for combat due to the reduction in maneuverability at high speeds. The speed limiter, represented by this box, will limit your top speed based on where you have it set. So if you have it maxed out towards the top of the speed bar, you will be able to pick up speed until you reach your maximum top speed. If you lower it, you will lower your top speed and be much slower. Handy if you want to slow down your movements when landing or doing other delicate maneuvers in tight spaces. You can adjust your speed limiter with your mouse wheel. On a side note, you may want to consider binding speed limiter on and off in the keybind section. This keybind, when held down, will temporarily max out your speed limiter. When released, it will return it to its previous setting. It can also be single tapped to toggle the speed limiter to the max setting and tapped again to return it to its previous position. Another keybind you may want to consider customizing is the Reset SCM option. When tapped, this option will reset your speed limiter back to the max SCM defaults. To the bottom right of the speed tape, we have the directional momentum indicator. In space, it can be difficult to determine which direction you're moving. This indicator shows which direction of travel the ship is moving in and how powerful the thruster output is in moving the ship in that direction. The white square shows the direction the ship is moving in, and the red wedge shows the direction and power of the thrusters. So when moving forward, the wedge will move forward. The tighter the red wedge, the more power is being applied. The wider the red wedge, the less power. Okay, let's draw our attention back to the center of the HUD. On the center we have, the crosshair, which represents the nose of the craft, useful for orienting and, of course, getting guns on target. Generally, you'll also see what is known as the TVI, or True Vector Indicator. The TVI, which is represented by two carets pointing at each other, shows the direction that the ship is moving in. This is very handy when doing complex maneuvers. For example, if you're trying to navigate yourself around an asteroid, the TVI will let you know if you're about to slam into the side of the asteroid, and you can use your movement keys to maneuver the ship's momentum and get around it. There are two versions of the TVI, the forward-facing and the rear-facing. When in atmospheric flight, the center of the HUD will show a pitch ladder which is aligned with the horizon. Each rung of the ladder is a degree marker. Positive pitch attitude means that you're moving away from the planet or moon. Negative pitch attitude means the ship is pointed down towards the planet or moon. This is useful for orienting yourself in poor weather, maintaining level flight, climbing, or diving. Just above the targeting crosshairs is the heading tape. When in space, this indicator can be used to call out objects or targets either to members of the same flight or for gunners to call out other targets. When in atmospheric flight on a planet, the heading tape also includes cardinal directions. Above the heading tape is the ship's current emissions output. From left to right is infrared, cross-section, and electromagnetic. These are more useful for stealth and evasion purposes, so we'll revisit these in my basic combat guide. To the bottom right of the crosshair is the G indicator. This shows how many G-forces the craft is experiencing and in which direction. Above the numerical value is the G-safe indicator. G-safe, when enabled, causes IFCS to limit thruster output to lower the amount of Gs the pilot may experience, slowing the rate at which blackouts and redouts occur. It can't always prevent G-locking, but it does reduce the rates at which they happen. The drawback of G-safe is that it does take some control away from the pilot. To the right of the G indicator is the pitch attitude indicator, which provides a numerical value for the exact pitch angle of the ship. In atmospheric flight, the pitch attitude indicator is instead replaced with an altimeter, which shows your current height from the planet in meters. To the right of the pitch attitude indicator is the weapon status widgets. This shows the current ammo and energy capacity for weapons, as well as their heat status indicators. We'll come back to this in the basic combat guide. Below the weapon status is the hydrogen and quantum fuel indicators. Hydrogen fuel is what powers all thrusters and engines aboard our starship. This indicator shows how much fuel you have left, and if fully depleted, the thrusters will eventually flame out and you'll not be able to move at all. Quantum fuel is what's used to fuel quantum drives, which push the ship at around 20% the speed of light, needed for interplanetary travel between planets and moons. The quantum fuel indicator shows how much quantum fuel is available, and if this runs out, your ship will not be able to jump to other parts of the system you're currently in. To the right of the fuel indicators is the gimbal status. Gimbal status is more useful for combat, so we'll again come back to this in my next guide. Next to the gimbal status is the countermeasure counter for both decoys and noise launchers. Again, more useful for combat, so we'll touch on this again in the basic combat guide. Okay, so we know how our ship moves around and we know how to read the HUD symbology and also got a few keybinds under our belt. Let's go ahead and do some takeoff and landing demonstrations to show how we can put this knowledge to work. Alright, here we are in New Babbage with my Avenger Titan. Interestingly enough, the Avenger Titan is actually used to train naval pilots in basic flight, so this is going to be perfect for what we're going to do. We're just going to do some basic takeoff, flight, and landing procedures, and we'll go from there. Okay, first things first, we're going to need to get in our ship. Holding F always brings up our interaction key, and I'm going to use that to select enter ship to get in my ship here. Alright, let's go ahead and hop in. Alright, nice and cozy. So the next thing we need to do is we need to power on the ship. So we're going to go ahead and hold the interaction key, again, F, and we're going to look for the flight ready controls here. You can pretty much click and select anything, as this game does have a clickable cockpit, but for the most part what we're going to look for right now is flight ready, which should be right here. Let's go ahead and do that. That will power on the power plant, engines, shields, and weapons, and just make us ready for flight. We're ready to go. There's also a hotkey to immediately just turn on flight ready, which is the R key. Okay, so the next thing that we need to do is we need to open our hangar. After all, we're kind of stuck in here. By the way, you can see I'm looking around by using free look. I'm using track IR right now actually to look around. But if you want to look around with your mouse, you can just tap Z on your keyboard, and you can also do free look with your mouse. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at this MFD here. Holding F, I'm going to click menu. And then we're going to go to the comms section to click comms, and you'll see the New Babbage spaceport shows up right there. I'm going to click the hail button, which is on the right side here, to hail New Babbage. That will contact them, and then once they've received it, they'll open the hangar for me.
You are clear to launch.
Alright, we got clearance to launch. Let's go ahead and get prepped here. So the first thing I'm going to do is, because I'm in a hangar, I want to be very careful. What I'm going to do is I'm going to lower my speed limiter down. And I'm going to make sure that my speed limiter is set to a low setting, so that way my ship doesn't take off on me like a bat out of hell. You have to remember these ships have a lot of weight to them, so we don't want to go too fast. So a low speed limiter is important. Again, your hangar may be above you instead of in front of you, so use free look to look around to find it. Okay, we're ready to go. Let's go ahead and get off the ground here. I'm going to hold space bar here. Alright, now we're airborne. Let's go ahead and get centered here. Looking good. Beautiful. Alright, now we're hovering above the ground. IFCS is holding us up. Let's go into third person here. F4 to go into third person. Holding Z and using our mouse allows us to free orbit the camera around us. Again, handy if you need to see other objects that are in the area, or if you have the hangar above you and you need more visual cues to see what's going on. Once we want to go back to our normal camera view, we're going to hold F4 and tap star on our numpad to reset our camera view. Let's go ahead and go back to first person, F4. Let's bring our gear up. We're going to hit N on our keyboard to bring our gear up. Alright, now we're ready to fly. Let's go ahead and apply some forward thrust and get ourselves out of this hangar. Nice and easy now. See, not too shabby. It's actually quite simple once you have your limiter. A lot of rookie pilots forget that the limiter is so important for basic flight. Let's go ahead and up the ante a bit here and increase our limiter up a little bit. And let's get our air legs or whatever you want to call it, and just fly around and enjoy ourselves. At this moment, now that you're free of the hangar, you're free to basically move about the planet and enjoy yourself. Fly around and enjoy the sights and the visuals that Star Citizen has to offer. Use this opportunity to get a chance to feel how atmospheric flight is different from space flight. You'll notice that when you're flying in atmosphere, it's a little bit harder to yaw left and right because air wind resistance is pulling you, especially if you're going above SCM speeds. Get used to seeing how it feels flying above SCM speeds and notice how hard it is for your ship to maneuver. You notice that also yawing is even much harder at these higher speeds. If you actually want to make a turn, you're going to need to bank like an actual aircraft, so you'll have to roll into your turns and pull your nose up. If you find that you're having trouble slowing down for whatever reason, you can use space brake to arrest the momentum of your ship. It acts just the same as if you let off the throttle. The difference is it will cut off any other throttle commands you're giving it. However, if you want it to be more powerful than it already is, you can go into the game settings and flip Space Brake uses boost to on. And what happens is when Space Brake is now engaged, it will use boost instead, and that will slow you down even faster than normal. Okay, as we're making our way back here, one last thing I want to talk about is cruise control. Tapping C on the keyboard will apply automatic forward thrust until it hits the speed limiter. Think of it as like auto run in other MMOs. When activated, you'll see that the speed limiter has a new icon, which is a chevron with a line on top of it, letting you know that cruise mode is actually on. Keep an eye on this. You don't know how many times I've seen players accidentally leave cruise control on and end up slamming into the side of a building, so keep an eye out for that little icon. Alright, approaching the spaceport now. I know it's the spaceport because of these bright white and red lights that light up New Babbage's spaceport. Generally, most spaceports are going to have some type of bright lighting to let you know that that is indeed the spaceport, and we need to get close in order to contact ATC. So let's go ahead and make our way there now, and then we're going to go ahead and hail ATC for them to give us a hangar so we can land. Okay, this seems good enough. I'm going to go ahead and let off the throttle here and let my ship come back down to a full stop and hover. Now I'm going to show you the other method of contacting ATC, and we're going to do that through the Mobiglass. How we're going to do that is we're going to press F11 on our keyboard to bring up our contacts menu in our Mobiglass. In the context menu, you have channels, friends, and pending. We're going to click on friends. And on the friends page, you'll see that New Babbage Spaceport shows up there. All I have to do is click the small triangle to hail them, and I can go ahead and exit and just wait for ATC to acknowledge and give us a hangar now.
Please proceed to assigned landing bay.
There we go. ATC has assigned us a hangar, and you'll see that we now have a small circle with a small little chevron pointing down, and that is the hangar that has been assigned to us. So let's go ahead and make our way there. And there's another player exiting that hangar there. Nice to see you, buddy. Now again, we're going to keep our speed limiter low here because we need fine-tuned control. We don't want to slam into the side of the hangar at high speeds here. We want to come in a nice gentle glide path at a nice slow and easy pace. Nice and easy, nice and controlled. Alright, now we are just above the pad here. Let's go ahead and bring our gear down with N. Alright, gears down. I'm in third person, so I'm just going to tap and hold Z and just look around with my mouse. Looks good. Let's back up a little bit there. Bring her down with control. Nice and easy. And touchdown. Mind you, this stuff takes practice and getting used to, so I recommend you constantly practice your takeoffs and landings. Alright, I'm going to go ahead now and power off the engines. The default key for powering off engines and saving fuel is the I key. Alright, and we are now safe and sound, and I'm ready to exit the craft and move about my day. Alright, next thing I wanted to show you is how to do automated landings. I didn't want to show this at first because I do want you actually to practice landing manually on your own. After all, it's probably one of the most rewarding experiences in Star Citizen, which is to land on your own, nice and safe, and to look cool in front of your friends, of course. We all like that. But I'm going to show you the auto landing procedure if you are still indeed struggling with landing and you want to learn how to just have the computer do it for you. Okay, so as I come over the pad here, I'm going to go ahead and tap my gear key to bring my gear down. And once I'm over the pad, I'm going to hold the gear key again down for a couple seconds, and that will activate auto land, and the computer will take over and land me.
Landing complete.
There we go, back and safe and sound thanks to the computer. Not as cool in my opinion as landing yourself, but useful if you still are struggling with this. Alright, next up on the chopping block is how to quantum travel, which is something that every pilot is going to need to learn. Once you've sufficiently gotten out of the atmosphere of the planet or moon you're at, we can hit F2 to bring up our star map. Now, in order to find where I'm at, I'm going to click this crosshatch up here. It's going to take me to where I'm at. In this case, I'm somewhere around Lyria. Let's double-click Lyria. And here's the locations around Lyria, but I don't want to go to Lyria since I'm already here. Let's go somewhere else. Walla seems like a good choice. Let's go here. And I'm just going to click and drag it. And let's go to Arcourt Mining Area 056. Click Set Route. And on the top left now, you'll see it shows the route and the path markers. It also shows my current fuel and the different path markers to get to my location. Once I am satisfied with this and I know I have enough fuel and I'm ready to go, just hit F2 to close that. And now we're going to find the quantum marker. In this case, orbital marker 2, I believe is what it said in the star map. Once I'm lined up with it, I'm going to tap B to spool my quantum drive. Once my drive is spooled and calibrated, I'm just going to hold and press B to initiate the travel.
Quantum travel initiated. Quantum travel.
Sweet. Move on to the next one. There's Walla. Spooling. Spooling complete. Waiting for calibration. Once it's ready, we hold B and off we go.
Quantum travel initiated.
Now, the process of quantum traveling is entirely automated. Once you've calibrated and spooled and sent your way off, the computer does the rest. So at this point, you can get out of your chair if you'd like, if your ship has an interior, and you can mess around with gear or walk around and enjoy the sights, whatever you'd like, until you get to your destination. Alright, we are decelling for Walla now and about to drop out of quantum.
Quantum travel complete.
And here we are. After a short cooldown, we're ready for the next point. Arcourt Mining Area, which is on the other side of the moon, but that's alright because we're going to spline jump. So we're going to line up like normal. Once we're lined up, hold B to initiate the spline jump.
Quantum travel initiated.
Same as before, the entire process is completely automated. At any time, you can abort quantum travel by holding B or pressing I to turn off your engines. This is really handy if you, for whatever reason, need to just drop out in the middle of space, or if you're worried that the spline jump is making an incorrect calculation, it could be sending you into the planet, so keep that in mind. And yes, the computer can make an incorrect calculation, so you need to be very careful and vigilant for that if it does happen. Alright, here we are. I can go ahead and bring up my quantum menu again. I can't quantum to it anymore because it's too close, but I usually like to leave up my quantum interface anyway because I like to see the actual location as I'm coming in. And Walla is a very thin atmosphered moon, so I want to be careful I'm not going too fast here and be sure I'm slowing down ahead of time. Thicker atmosphere planets will slow you down a lot faster, meaning it's less likely that you're going to crash into the planet, but moons can be very dangerous if you don't know what you're doing, so careful. And one last quick tip, you can press Tab to initiate a scan, and when you're near a planet or any type of object, it will give you a topographical layout, which is really handy if you're on the dark side of a moon or a planet and you're finding it hard to navigate. You can also press L to turn your lights on. In conjunction with scanning, you can use it to navigate the darkness quite easily. Alright, that covers quantum travel and night navigation. Let's move on. Alright, last but not least, I can't talk about landing and takeoffs without also talking about docking. Currently in Star Citizen, docking is only available for the Aegis Hammerhead and the Origin 890 Jump. So if you don't have those ships, don't worry about it. But for those of you that do, or you have orgmates that do, and you do want to engage with the docking procedure, let's go ahead and take a look at it now. Also, the Constellation has the ability to dock and undock the Merlin Snub Fighter, and the process I'm showing you here is almost completely identical. The main difference is the Snub Fighter has to target the actual Constellation and then hit the gear key to request docking permission from the pilot.
Aegis combat assist.
Okay, my ship is powered on and is ready to go and is now prepped for undocking procedure. To begin the undocking procedure, we're going to hit the gear key on our keyboard and that will begin the process.
Launch initiated.
Once you hear launch initiated, we're going to go ahead and pull back on the throttle to ensure that we're not going to go flying forward into the side of the station.
Docking.
And there we go. We are now separated from the station and we are now free to go about our business.
Thank you, and please visit again.
Okay, now for docking. Let's go ahead and request.
proceed to assigned landing bay.
All right, the landing bay is now going to be assigned to us. Let's wait for the docking approval.
Docking request approved.
All right, docking request has been approved. Let's go ahead and find the docking collar we're going to attach to. There it is. And let's go ahead and make our way towards the docking collar. You'll notice that after we've received docking request approval, we have a new HUD that appeared at the center of the ship now. This is just the new docking HUD that assists with docking. It's quite simple, but I'm going to go ahead and explain it here real quick, just to give you a quick rundown of what exactly is being shown here, because it's a little bit complicated, at least at first. First things first, on the outer edge, you're going to see this little red ball here. That is our roll rotation. We're trying to get it within that small circle. When it's lined up, it will line up green like that. In the center, we have the pitch. So if we pitch up and down, you can see that we need to get it lined up in the circle and it's green. On the left, we have yaw. Same idea. We want to get it lined up into the green. Awesome. And on the top right, you'll see there's a red box there. That's actually our position indicator, and that is the actual position of the docking collar. We want to get that lined up in the center, and it will light up green when we are in position. So let's do that now. Now, this can be a little bit tricky because these are larger ships you're trying to dock, so make sure that you are providing very gingerly small amounts of inputs. And if you need to, bring your speed limiter down, of course. Go ahead and bring her in. This will take a couple of tries. Trust me. Docking is not the most easiest thing in the world to do. It takes a lot of practice. But luckily, Star Citizen does make it easy. Once you have it lined up here, you'll notice that the auto docking procedure will take over.
Automated docking initiated.
There we go. Once you have it lined up, automated docking will then begin the last phases of locking you in. Alternatively, if you don't want to go through the entire process of lining things up, just like auto land, you can just hold the gear key down again and it will auto dock you.
Engines offline.
Landing complete. Have a pleasant stay.
All right. Docked, safe and sound. All right, folks, that's it for me today. I hope you enjoyed this basic flight guide, and I sincerely hope it helps improve your flying if you are a rookie pilot. If you did genuinely enjoy this video and want to help out the channel, then please drop a like, as it really does help out smaller creators like myself, and of course, share it with friends or org mates that could use the guidance as well. If you want to see more videos, then be sure to subscribe, and until next time, I'll see you all in the black.